This is Lily. I'm a social worker with Child Welfare Services, CPS or CWS, DCSF. I know in Texas it's called something completely different, but I can never remember. So I am making this short video, or shorter than usual video, because I've been trying to summarize that shadow foster care story. So I recorded two different parts, and the second part was basically just me reading it. I didn't like it. It has some information that it's relevant to that story, but it was just too much. So I figured, let me summarize what this is. So shadow foster care is when a child welfare agency is investigating some concerns for abuse or neglect, and then they find that there is concerns, but it's not an imminent risk that the children need to be removed through court right then and there. But it's also not safe enough for them to close it. What some agencies were doing was diversion or kinship diversion. In this particular case, it was Cherokee County in North Carolina. So in this story, the lawyer, Melissa Jackson, says she was just like walking into court one day and she had a gentleman approached her. The dad, Hogan, that's his last name, he talked to her about how when his wife had a heart attack and he went to the hospital with the wife, they sent the 10-year-old to the neighbors with a backpack full of clothes, and that was it. She showed up to school the next day smelling like cat pee, and somehow it was reported as neglect. Nobody figured out that the neighbor's cat, had peed in the girl's backpack. And she was, they did a safety plan with the family to send her to stay with the paternal grandfather. So a safety plan is when the parent has an agreement with the agency. It's not an official removal. It doesn't always have to be with the child out of the home. It's just an agreement that we do. Where I work in California, we do it for 30 days. In this place, it sounds like it was kind of open-ended as far as the date. So he says 4 months later, the wife's been out of the hospital now, but they lost their house due to not being able to pay the bills. They're living with maternal grandparents. CPS comes to get him to formalize the arrangement with the grandfather. He says he doesn't really read. He doesn't know how to read well. Nobody explained what he was signing. They just told him it was to give the grandfather, to formalize it. And he didn't know he was signing away his rights forever. The attorney decides to help him. She's going to take his case for free. She goes to court to try to look up the records, and she can't find anything. So it's a small county, right? She emails the one attorney that deals with child welfare services that works for the agency, and he emails her the visitation and custody agreement. Nobody's ever heard of this paperwork. She emails it to a friend, another attorney that deals with family law, and he's never seen one before. They take the county to court. They asking for custody of the daughter back. And even the judge goes like, what the heck is this? The judge asks the county attorney, what authority do you have to authorize this? And he said, none. I've asked my staff to stop doing any more of these. So when Melissa Jackson hears anymore, she was like, wait, more? What do you mean more? I thought this was a one-time thing. So she starts looking into it. This court case, he got custody back that same day. They said this is not valid. He gets custody back. Melissa starts digging into it. She's preparing for an actual lawsuit to get money from the county. So she starts digging into it. She discovers a whole lot of other families. So she starts calling social workers. She gets a hold of one that recently quit. So she's explaining when they first told them about this, she knew it was wrong. It just didn't sound right. It was against their training. She's explaining in the article how she knew that this is not how you're supposed to do it. You're not supposed to close a case that has the child out of the home arrangement. That's not something that we close. But she talked to her supervisor. Her supervisor said it's okay. She still didn't feel comfortable, brought it up to the director of their CPS director. And the director said, no, we cleared it with our attorney. It's good. Just do it. So she says in her 2.5 years that she worked for CPS, she's seen maybe 30 to 50 of these agreements done. Then there is another story. The main story of this article is the two sisters. Molly, who's 15, and Haven. The girls were 15 and 14 when their mom died due to getting an infection, and they went to live with grandma. So grandma was having issues with the grief of her daughter dying and was blaming the girls for not taking good care of their mom. So this made it like impossible for the girls to live there. The older one tried to commit suicide by swallowing a bunch of pills. CPS comes when that happened, and they take the younger one to stay with a friend. So the parents of her friend take responsibility for her, and they couldn't take the older sister because she had to be in the hospital against her will for 10 days. So at the end of those 10 days, when she's ready to be discharged, this lady that she doesn't know at all comes to pick it up. She's the mother of one of her friends as well. So she's never met this lady. She says, "You're coming with me." Cool. She goes over there and she says this lady doesn't believe in medication. So all the medication, everything she just got herself stabilized on at the hospital, gets flushed down the toilet. So she's saying, she's with this person for a little while. A few months later, she starts getting death benefits from her mom passing away. She starts seeing some resentment because this lady's not getting any help to take care of her. She just kind of volunteer. So she says, it just felt really awkward. She moves out. She's thinking she's going to take care of herself. She's getting these $600 a month. She would be about 16 at this time. So she's bouncing from place to place. I forgot to mention their dad's a drug addict. He's been in and out of their lives. He's not reliable at all. So she goes to live with the brother out of state, who's like 20 at the time. She's having trouble with him there because she's not able to get her. He can't enroll her in school because he doesn't have legal guardianship or custody of her. So the younger sister says, "Hey, we need dad to give him custody." They come back to Murphy County. They track down the dad. They say, he's like shirtless, looks crazy, talking to himself, like saying all kind of weird stuff. And they didn't think that they would gonna let him sign anything. But yeah, they went to the Child Protective Services office and they had him sign the visitation and custody agreement. He signed the one for the younger girl with the people that have been taking care of her, and one for the brother to take care of Molly, the older one. So they go back to their town. I think they said in Alabama, and they won't take that paper because it doesn't mean anything. It's not legal. It's not a court order, so they can't take it. Finally, she's able to get enrolled as homeless. She starts getting nostalgic. She decides to come back home. By this point, she's closer to 17. She goes back to living with grandma. Things are still not great with grandma, and eventually Molly was drinking, smoking weed. Somehow CPS gets involved again, and they tell the 16-year-old, "You need to find a place to stay or you're gonna come with the CPS worker and sleep in the office." So a relative convinced them, "Go stay with the neighbor." The neighbor says fine, but they tell the CPS worker, "I make $12 an hour. I can't support her. She's gonna have to pull her own weight." They go check the house, look around. They saw a bedroom that was fine. They said, "Good." The neighbor that took her in said, like, "They don't know me. They didn't do any checks on me or anything." The bedroom, of course, wasn't for Molly. It was for for the lady's daughter. Molly was sleeping on the pantry between the pots and pans. She had to pay $200 a month for rent. Eventually, they heard from the attorney looking into it. The attorney tells them this is not okay. This is not the way it's supposed to be, and explains to them, especially Molly, who's now about to turn 18. If we're able to get you into foster care, you qualify for a whole bunch of services. Foster care services, help paying rent, help getting into college, all kinds of stuff. So she takes them the next day to the CPS office. The girls tell their story. And yeah, they do the paperwork. They totally qualify as foster children because they have no legal guardian to take care of them. It doesn't really explain the situation with with Haven, because she's with a safe family. She's okay with that family. But it does say Molly did get into whatever program that were able to help her pay for her rent. But she was not able to qualify for the foster care help because she had no proof of being in foster care. She had just enrolled, I guess. I don't know what the word for it is. And she wasn't able to get financial aid because she didn't have a parent or guardian tax records to show. Eventually, Jackson takes the case of the girls to court. The case for Molly is pending. It's coming up in January 10th. In the case for Haven settled for $450,000 minus attorney's fees. So now Jackson has all this information. She's got the information from the social worker. She's got the information. By the way, the social worker got news that there was a criminal investigation going on because of all of this that was being uncovered. And she was at first afraid to speak, but once she heard that the director said she'd never heard of this before, that's when she said, oh, heck no. And she went and agreed to give an affidavit to Jackson with everything she knew. So she goes back to court with the dad in that first story and files a federal lawsuit against the county, naming the attorney, the supervisor, and the director. They were asking for $300 for per day that his daughter was kept away from him, which was a total of $3 million. And the judge actually awarded them $4 million. So there was also a criminal charges filed for all those three people. The supervisor pled guilty to 2 misdemeanors. He explained that that's the direction he received from the agency attorney and the director. And that's the information he passed on to his social workers. It doesn't say if he's serving any time or paying fines or anything like that. The director pled guilty to 2 felonies. She's doing 1 year probation and 25 hours of community service. And the attorney, who bears most of the responsibility because he's the one that's telling everybody that yes, it's okay to do this, they are going to court. He did not make a plea. I guess the lawsuit is that this is not a valid contract for child welfare to impose. But their defense is saying it's a valid contract between this person and whoever they choose. It doesn't involve us. The attorney is saying she's planning to bring to court 20 more families. So that's it. The whole commentary about how this is not good. This is not okay. So I totally lost my train of thought, but I was trying to say that whole analysis of what I think about it will be in the long video. This was just a summary. Thank you for being here with me, and check out the other 2 videos if you want a more in-depth